If we are to believe the rumours, Freemasonry is an arcane, secret society that is often believed to be associated with a group of the world's most powerful men, who conglomerate under the occult to practice esoteric, satanic rituals in order to control the world and enslave humanity in preparation for the Antichrist. But how do these claims contrast to the actual truth? In order to understand Freemasonry, we need to venture way back in time to understand who were the medieval guilds that founded it. People from all over the world today marvel at the beauty of Gothic cathedrals, intrigued by their intricate carvings, stained glass windows, wooden stone sculptures, and well-designed gardens and grounds. This was true in the High Middle Ages as well. Yet, today we often forget what it actually took to design, implement, and create such extraordinary buildings. The Gothic cathedrals were built from and designed with many types of stone from a variety of quarries, and they display fascinating and intricate carvings. Such delicate craftsmanship was handled by the guilds of stonemasons, who were the medieval Freemasons. Historical accounts say that the guilds would often work late in the night to meet a tight deadline, working by candlelight on very high scaffolding, risking their lives, prompting many to ask, how did they create these large Gothic cathedrals, those that we can still visit today hundreds of years later in near perfect condition? The secret was the structure of the craft guilds. They were divided into three distinct categories: the master, the journeyman, and the apprentice. The master was a highly accomplished craftsman who took on his apprentices very selectively. These were generally teenagers who were provided food, clothing, shelter, and education by the master in exchange for working as an apprentice. Their apprenticeship was generally set for a fixed term of service that could last anywhere from 5 to 9 years. After this, an apprentice could become a journeyman, one who was allowed to work for one or another master and was paid with wages for his labour. Stonemasons had their own set of regulations, which were rarely written down. The training of medieval stonemasons was conducted orally. They were a highly secretive brotherhood, especially in France, and did not participate in the general trade guild system nearly as much as the other guilds. Stonemasons were subject to heavy penalties for violating the secrets of the craft with which they had been entrusted. We must remember that errors in the construction of a building could be fatal for both workers and the public. Unlike the consequences of a tailor missing a stitch, for example, a stonemason craftsman was working with truly dangerous information. The master mason, understandably, was responsible for those apprentices he had so carefully tested and trained, in addition to being concerned about keeping the guild's monopoly on certain types of trade secrets and information. So, at what point does these secretive stonemason guilds become the Freemasons that we know today? Contrary to popular belief, the origins of Freemasonry are obscure. The creation of the Freemason craft, as it is also called, gradually occurred over time between the first recorded gentleman joining an Edinburgh Stonemasons Guild in 1599 and the 1721 publication in London of the Constitution of the Freemasons by Scotch Presbyterian minister James Anderson. Freemasonry is fundamentally self-improvement, a volunteer association that teaches moral, intellectual, and spiritual lessons through 3 initiation ceremonies. Freemasonry has 3 degrees that are modelled after those original stonemasons' progress: apprentice, fellowcraft, and master mason. Freemasonry was, and remains, open to all men of good reputation who profess a belief in God, from Christianity to Judaism to Islam to any monotheistic religion. God is referred to in Lodge by the Freemasons as the supreme architect of the universe. Freemasonry contains many of the elements of religion. Its teachers enjoin morality, charity, and obedience to the law of the land. In most traditions, the applicant for admission is required to be an adult male, and all applicants must believe in the existence of the Supreme Being and in the immortality of the soul. These vary from guild to guild, but generally said, those are the requirements for entry. By the 1750s, a variety of Christians and non-Christians, Europeans and non-European men, and a few women were members. Moreover, contrary to popular beliefs, Freemasons have no historical connection to the Knights Templar, as no Templars were left when the organisation was formed in 1717, since the Templars ceased all operations in 1312. However, it is believed that Masonry first evolved from an even more secretive secret society called the Oculus, which was older than Masonry and much, much more arcane. Their lodges were safe houses where freethinkers could explore everything from the laws of physics to the rights of man to the nature of God, all hidden from the oppressive, authoritarian eyes of church and state. But largely because they were so secretive, little is known about most of these organizations. Membership in all but the biggest died out over a century ago, and many of their encrypted texts have remained uncracked, dismissed by historians as impenetrable novelties. But there is even more. It is also believed that the Oculus was inspired by an even older secret society, the legendary Islamic society named the Hashashin Order. The Order of Hashashin was a medieval secret society that excelled in asymmetric warfare, surgical strikes, psychological warfare, and the assassination of important people, no matter how robust their security was. This order was forged in 1090 by Hassan-i Sabah, an incredibly charismatic leader, a brilliant mathematician, and a devoted religious scholar. It is also believed that the Hashashin Order heavily influenced Western secret societies when Christian crusaders in the East fell upon the invincible Order of Assassins. In modern days, the Order has gone through a positive rebranding and is now called AGA Khan Foundation. By the way, fun fact, the Order of Hashashin served as inspiration in the creation of the Assassin's Creed video game. Freemasonry has, almost from its inception, encountered considerable opposition from organized religion, especially from the Roman Catholic Church and from various states. Freemasonry is not a Christian institution, nor is a satanic club, although it has often been mistaken for both. Freemasonry models itself upon the fraternities of medieval stonemasons, as we've seen before, who would use secret words and symbols to recognize each other's legitimacy, and so protect their work from themselves and outsiders. Trigger warning: Nazis and the Holocaust. An asset which would prove trivial after the Nazis were able to infiltrate the Freemasons during World War II, after having formally rejected Freemasonry and banned the practice in January 1934. After gaining power in 1933, Hitler shut down all 9 Grand Lodges of the Freemasons in Germany. Hitler accused the Jews of conspiring with them to take control of Germany. He believed that the Freemasons in Germany were transmitting reports to their Freemason brothers abroad, resulting in the establishing of a sub-department in the Schutzstaffel, a major paramilitary organization whose task was specifically to locate, arrest, and annihilate nearly 79,000 German Freemasons. The Nazis, as with many minorities in the nation and throughout wider Europe, herded members into camps and forced them to wear a red patch in the shape of an upside-down triangle, thought to deprive them of the power embodied in their organization's equilateral triangle. Across Europe, during the Holocaust, the Nazis murdered around 200,000 Freemasons, in addition to 6 million Jews and almost 5 million others who the Nazis believed were subhuman. However, after the war, Freemasons began to avert themselves to the new world that was imbued with freedom and democracy, especially in Western Europe. Moreover, with the decline of cathedral building, some lodges of operative Masons began to accept honorary members to bolster their declining membership. Within these lodges, Freemasons share and learn several symbolisms. But what are these symbolisms? Well, there's a few basic ones. They differ from lodge to lodge, but some remain constant throughout the world. 1. The square and compass. This is a widely known symbol of Freemasonry. Both the square and compasses are architects' tools and are used in a Masonic ritual as emblems to teach symbolic lessons. It is often seen with the letter G in the middle, which stands for geometry, a powerful science that helps unravel the mysteries and wonders of nature and mathematics. The compass, a tool that is used to circumscribe and draw circles, is meant to keep Masons within bounds of all mankind. Its white colour refers to the pure heart of Masons, which they idealize themselves with. The angle measures the square, the symbol of earth and the realm of the material. The square teaches to square Masonic actions with all mankind, and it is also the emblem of the Master of the Lodge, because it is the proper Masonic emblem of his office. The square also represents fairness, balance, stability, and equality, giving a foundation for building upon. Just like the foundation of a building. Together, the compass and the square represent the convergence of matter and spirit, and the convergence of earthly and spiritual responsibilities. As measuring instruments, the tools represent judgment and discernment. Lambskin apron. It is arguably the most iconic symbolic emblem of modern Freemasonry. It is the unique badge of a Mason and is considered a tool. It's said to be more honourable than the Roman eagle or the golden fleece. The Masonic apron is literally the badge of a Mason carried with him into the next existence. Celebrated in poetry and prose, this apron is the initial gift of the lodge to a candidate, and at the end of their life's pilgrimage is placed on his mortal remains and buried with his body in the grave. This badge symbolizes regeneration, or a new life. It refers to the pure heart. It goes back to the days of the working guild of stonemasons, when masons wore a long apron of thick leather to protect themselves against splinter of rock and blows from their tools. As a piece of protective clothing, the apron symbolizes hard work, and at the same time it helps create and maintain the strong bond of belonging to the same fraternity. The next is very well known, the all-seeing eye. This is a powerful symbol that has been used for thousands of years, if not longer. Some scholars trace its ancestry back to ancient Egypt and the Eye of Horus. The symbol has been an important Christian symbol that can often be found on stained glass windows in churches. In the United States, the Eye of Providence is often associated with conspiracies, the Illuminati, the Vatican, and the Freemasons, who started publicly using the symbol in 1797. The all-seeing eye is a reminder that humanity's thoughts and deeds are always privy by the omnipotent God, who the Masons believe in wholly. Usually, the Masonic Eye of Providence has a semicircular glory below it, and it is sometimes enclosed by a triangle. The next is acacia. To Freemasons, acacia is the symbol of the immortality of the soul. Acacia is an evergreen tree, and by its unchanging nature, this sacred plant reminds Masons that they will strive to follow a better spiritual path. The Freemasons believe that their spirituality is an emanation from God, and as such, it can never die, much like the leaves of the acacia plant. Acacia plays an important part of the ritual of Freemasonry, and the plant is also a symbol of innocence. Without doubt, some of these symbolisms and philosophies have rightfully motivated some eccentric Freemasons to fight for freedom and knowledge from various religions and ethnicities. The following is a list of some notable Freemasons who did remarkable things with their lives. Abdelkader ibn Muhyiddin was an Islamic scholar who unexpectedly found himself leading a military campaign. He built up a collection of Algerian tribesmen that for many years successfully held out against the French colonial invasion in the mid-19th century. His consistent regard for what would now be called human rights, especially as regard to his Christian opponents, drew widespread admiration, and a crucial intervention of his to save the Christian community of Damascus from a massacre in 1860 awarded international praise. In this recognition of saving many lives, he received decoration and presents internationally. He lived the remainder of his life in public devotions, religious instruction, and practical charity. By a singular contrast, he now wished to wear the badge of a society based and established on the principle of universal brotherhood. As a result, he was drawn to the Masonic body in Alexandria, who hastened to welcome the illustrious neophyte. The Lodge of the Pyramids was specifically convened for the occasion on the evening of 1867. Abdelkader was initiated into the mysteries, as they are called, and to the privileges of being a Fellow of the Prophet, adding the more time-honoured privilege of being a free and accepted Mason. He died in Damascus on May 26, 1883. Next up is George Washington, an American political leader, military general, statesman, and founding father who served as the first president of the United States from 1789 to 1797. Previously, he led Patriot forces to victory in the nation's war for independence. He presided at the Constitutional Convention of 1787, which established the US Constitution and a federal government. Back when he was 16, he became a surveyor, and a year later he was appointed to surveyor in Culpeper County, Virginia, which was his first public office. In 1752 he joined the colonial militia, and during the French and Indian War, known in Europe as the 7 Years' War, Washington won a reputation for bravery. In 1759, Washington entered the Virginia House of Burgesses, where he consistently opposed what he saw as unfair British taxes, setting the foundation for what would later become the revolutionary spirit of the United States. In June 1775, Washington was appointed commander of all colonial forces. He set about forming the Continental Army and trying to feed, clothe, and equip his soldiers. His early military fortunes were mixed, but an American victory at Saratoga in October 1777 prompted the French to agree to an alliance with the Americans. On 19 October 1781, the British Army surrendered at Yorktown. Peace talks began in Paris, and a treaty was signed in 1783. In 1787, Washington was elected president of the Constitutional Convention and used his immense influence to persuade the states to ratify the resulting constitution and unify into a single nation. He faced huge challenges in welding together these individual states, and especially for creating a unified government for the newfound nation. Washington wanted to retire after his first term, but due to public acclaim he was re-elected to a second term in 1792. Washington joined Freemasonry in the lodge at Fredericksburg, Virginia. He was 20 years old when he received his first degree of entered apprentice on November 4, 1752. Erasmus Darwin is next, and he was a British physician, best known as grandfather of the biologist Charles Darwin. Erasmus Darwin was a philosopher, poet, botanist, scientist, and physician. Well informed on all aspects of life in the late 18th century, science and medicine, he had advanced ideas on cosmology and evolution, which he recorded in verse of high quality. Darwin's major early interests were medicine and invention, but in the late 1770s he became fascinated by botany. He translated textbooks and composed The Love of Plants in 1789, which mainly comprises elaborate footnoted verses extolling Swedish botanist Carolus Linnaeus' taxonomic system. An immediate success, this erotic dramatization was later republished as the sequel to a poem called The Economy of Vegetation in 1791, and in the two-part The Botanic Garden. As a naturalist, he formulated one of the first formal theories on evolution in zoonomia, or the laws of organic life. He also presented his evolutionary ideas in this verse, in particular in the posthumously published poem The Temple of Nature. As a result, Erasmus Darwin was an important figure in the Enlightenment in his own right. Before coming to Derby in 1788, Dr. Erasmus Darwin had been made a Mason in the famous time immemorial lodge of Canongate Quilling No. 2 in Scotland. So, what do you think about this elusive network of what used to be craftsmen but has since evolved into a spiritual home for many people looking to advance themselves? Is Freemasonry good? Or is it bad? And in what ways do you think it might have shaped the Enlightenment in Europe and the world? Feel free to comment below. Hey guys, it's the narrator here. Thank you for listening to me talk about Freemasonry. A lot of research went into this video, and while most of this is quite fact-checked and thorough, it's important to note that these facts change across the world, especially the symbolisms. So, if you feel like there's something different, if you know a Freemason, or if you are a Freemason and would like to maybe correct us or import your own thoughts, feel free to comment that below. Anyway, if you want to watch more of our videos, learn how to harness the power of an energy, If you would like to learn how to harness the power of an entire star in your own backyard, click the video on the right about the Dyson sphere. If you want to join us on more adventures into the arcane, click the box below to subscribe.